Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. I would like to acknowledge that we're gathered on the traditional territory of Anemki-Waju and in Thunder Bay, and it is a bit of a gray day out there today, but we're here, so we're happy to be here. We would like to just do a little recap for you on Module 2, where we had a look at our personal work-life strategies, quite a robust conversation around examining privilege, which I felt was quite well examined. And really, given the global situation of our students, it was really examined from many different places and perspectives. So thank you for your honesty in participating in those conversations. And we also had a look about how do we build equitable schools, and we had some case study pieces in there.
Yeah, there were some really good comments. I just wanted to note, many of you recognize that this is a meeting you come into and you're a bit uninformed, and that's important to understand then what your position is. And you really reiterated that you'll be listening in this meeting, that your first and main message is that you're supporting the parent, you're supporting the child, and that's your first priority. There's lots of other logistical things, and I commented on this in several of my case study discussions. There are logistical things that are going to come up that are going to involve the board, and they're going to involve other parts of the board and legislative pieces. However, that's not the time, and that's not the place, and most of you recognize that very quickly, and that your conversation with the parent and your decision making around what you would do first were all about listening and ensuring that the parent and student knew they were safe, cared for, and that you would be in a learning stance going forward. So really appreciate those comments, and I think the discussion of privilege gave you an opportunity to really start to break down some of the thought processes. It just gives you a chance to kind of open your mind, see things you may not have thought about before, or maybe you have thought about in detail. And I get to hear a lot of varied perspectives because we do have people from all over the globe really in our class. So much appreciated your discussions and participation in the case study. Thank you.
I'd just like to say a hello out to one of our students because he is having some difficulty accessing the course. And we can read posts. We're working on it with IT, and hopefully we'll get it sorted out soon. We switched platforms, not we, but the university switched platforms this past spring, I guess, March break in March. So there's a few little kinks that they're still working out across all of them. One of the pieces that came up in my conversation, reading through it around the case study, was who's going to manage the meeting. And often parents will request a meeting and you will not necessarily know what it's about. And it's very common that I've had parents say, I want a meeting about my child, and I've tried to find out what it's about and like, no, I don't want to talk about it before you get there. And that doesn't usually happen once you're in a school for a while, but when you're new to a school and they don't know you, they don't know if they can trust you yet, that's often how they'll come in. They'll come in protected, they'll come in protective, and they will drop everything that's in their mind on that table while they're in there for the first time. So how you choose to react and manage that will really indicate how that relationship's going to move forward for the next 4 or 5 years when you're in the school. So as Christy said, and several of you said, listen with an open mind, listen with an open heart. Really for you, I think it's about gathering facts, gathering parental perspective, listening to everybody that they brought in. It's very common that parents will bring an advocate in with them. And that's born out of having to struggle and not wanting to struggle alone and wanting someone else to witness that conversation. So as a principal, if you feel like bringing somebody in, sometimes I would bring in the vice principal, sometimes I'd bring in the facilitator. Depending on who how volatile I anticipate it might be. There might be another person that I might bring in, maybe another principal colleague. But regardless, I think it's important that we recognize, and many of you did, that this is a space where you can start to build that relationship and really listen to the needs of the parents. So I found that an interesting piece. Practicum started in both our groups in Module 2. Really well done. I must say, I always like reading the practicums here because people put resources and talk about programming in their schools, and I find it gives me a nice K-12 lens. And in this case, we actually have some people working in adult education as well, international schools, private schools, IB schools. So there's quite a variety of things happening, and it's always a really great opportunity for all of us to learn from each other.
And I believe, just to double check, but I believe now both of us have all of our folks represented in a practicum discussion. That means you've signed up on the Google Doc that was provided up in Module 1.
1.8.
1.8, and I believe everybody is signed up. But if you're not, take a look and
Get your name in there.
Get our name in there.
And then we'll get you in.
Yeah, and moving forward, Module 3. So Module 3, you get into some of the real work of like being in the school and being a school leader, maybe for the first time. And so you're going to be looking at creating a vision, establishing that culture of inquiry, which there's already been some discussions and practicum work on what that looks like. I encourage you to take a look at PPM 159. That was out last year, and that's really the government actually making regulation around we should be having collaborative cultures of inquiry established within our schools. So it's an interesting read. It's short. You can find it on the ministry website. And then also moving into assessments and metrics of success. And there we ask you to challenge, again, thinking from that privilege lens, what we value as assessment metrics and what other stakeholders may value as assessment metrics.
And given our student grouping from all the different systems that we're representing, I think this will be a really interesting opportunity to see how different agencies around the globe really manage metrics and what they consider of value. And that's in a province like Ontario, provincially, because we're so diverse, there are many different values that people place on what is success. And so how provincially something may be measured versus locally how something may be measured. As a principal, you're often tasked with navigating that. And you have to be responsive to all, responsive to your community, but you still have a responsibility towards the school board if you're involved in provincial assessments as well. So there's multiple layers on how you can navigate that, both with your staff, yourself, your parents, your students.
And that comment about locality is an interesting comment that came up in one of our posts. Really, all of these, we often have macro policy being made at the ministry level, and they are trying to do sort of policy level ideas that can fit across context. But remembering that each context is really unique. So your school is a very unique local community, and it might not be the way you achieve things and the vision you have for that school may be very different than one just across town. Because of the local context and local community. So I encourage you to really think about that as you go through the entire course, but really these next few modules, thinking about how you build those relationships within the community, how you know your local community and what's important to them, and how you build that in your vision and then your metrics of success.
And if you haven't already, put yourself into either the school you're currently in, a school that you've previously worked in, the community you live in currently, but think about responding to all of these within a particular context. It will just help you focus your answers rather than being so broad, because how I approached one school community 3 miles away was different than how I approached in another school community. Process was the same, but the content of how I went about that was quite different. So, and then again, and you're in another school as well. So every time you switch schools, you have to have a good look around you, and then decide how you're going to proceed forward. So it's never the same. It's like a new class every year. So we'd like to wish you a good week, and we'll be checking in again. It's the long weekend here in Ontario, so that may mean you're away from your computer for 3 days, or it may mean you're catching up with your computer for 3 days. Hopefully it's the first one, not the second one. But we'd like to wish you a good week and a great holiday, and a safe holiday.
Yes, enjoy.